This is what we know. The world has grown dark, and while we have reason to fear, we have the strength not to. There are heroes among us to remind us that only from fear comes courage. That only from the darkness can we truly feel the light.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mark Tiberius Lemke, Chicago Blackhawks fan. This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, and you can help support the Batman Universe by going over to patreon.com/thebatmanuniverse. My name is Tim, and we are on episode 145, and this is going to be a real special episode. It's the Justice League review episode. It's something I've been waiting a long time for. I think we could make the argument for a lot of people that this is a movie some fans have waited their entire lives to see, and it's now here. So we've seen it. I'm anxious to talk about it. But as those who are listeners to our shows know, that Dane was not the most enthusiastic for Justice League. So as he said on many episodes, he was going to wait for reviews, hear my opinions on it. But I think he's even going to wait till it comes out on home video or digitally or Blu-ray, all that before he sees it. So I didn't want to talk about it by myself. So thankfully, we got an old friend joining me on this one. Rob Myers, former co-host of the Bat Fans podcast and current host of Rob and Everyone Loves the Drake. Rob, thank you for joining me on this one. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about this movie.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me back on. And my seat was a little dusty. I was kind of hoping Dane would have kept it a little bit cleaner, but I think that's where he's putting his leftover pizza boxes. So thanks, Dane. No, when you sent out the message to Terrence and I, which you'd also offered Terrence to come back on here. So Terrence wanted me to say, hey, but right now he's probably on Splash Mountain in Disney. So he's right now hanging out with another company. So we probably shouldn't even talk about that. But when you sent out the message, I was like, yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back on the show. And then more importantly, just to talk about Justice League and kind of what we were thinking and everything. So thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, we were even some from our early episodes when you were on, before we even, knew that Justice League officially got the green light from Warner Brothers. We knew it was coming once Man of Steel came out, and just the excitement we've had for it all the way back then. And, going through some of the ups and downs with the DC movie universe right now, with the critical responses for some movies like Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, then going back to the highs with Wonder Woman, and now we're at a Justice League. So, yeah, before we dive deep into the movie and our opinions on it, I just kind of want to start off first with how we were feeling going into the movie the night it came out, which was Thursday, and just our overall general impressions of it, our reactions once the movie was over. So, Rob, go ahead and let me know how you were feeling before you went into it and your initial thoughts right when the end credit scenes were over and the post-credit scenes.
Oh, awesome. The end credit scenes could just be a podcast all on its own.
That is very true, yeah.
Leading up to it, I was trying not to have the same reaction of going into Batman versus Superman where, like we were all so pumped for the movie, and then once the responses started coming out, it was just like, oh my gosh, people don't like it. So I sat in the theater for that first showing of BVS going, okay, I'm supposed to not like this, but I do like it. Am I not supposed to? I didn't want to have those feelings going into it. So I was really trying to stay like, social media dark. And, my wife is like, just form your own opinions. Don't rely on somebody else's opinion to know how you feel. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. I did watch the red carpet premiere that DC had. Was that Monday night, Tuesday night, something like that. And, seeing once the kind of the embargo was released for people to be able to say that, they liked it, just kind of real short and sweet, no full review. I did kind of break my blackout just a little bit to kind of see what some of those were. And after, a good handful of people saying that they liked it and there was some positivity around it, I was like, okay, that's all I needed to see. So I kind of checked all that in the back, and I was like, I just want to go in to this fresh movie and be like that kid back in 1978 watching Challenge of the Super Friends, and never dreamed that I was going to see Aquaman and Cyborg on screen together. So I was pumped going in for this. And then coming out of it, my face hurt because I was grinning from the very first scene all the way to the end credit scenes. I don't know if I could have had a bigger smile with the two end credit scenes as I did the beginning of the movie, but I walked out of that movie a complete 180 from Batman versus Superman. Going, I liked Batman versus Superman, but it took me 3 times going to the theater to kind of go, yeah, this is how I feel. I instantly walked out of Justice League going, if they never make another DC movie again and it ends here, I felt completely satisfied and going, yep, this is a Justice League movie I've waited my whole entire life for. I'm happy with the end result. So that's my beginning and ending right there for you.
Yeah, mine's gonna be pretty similar. I was really, really excited. I would say this whole month and the few weeks leading up to its release, I was just getting super pumped the more closer we got to it, and more so than probably any other DC movie that's come out since Man of Steel. Because, like you said, with Batman v Superman, I was excited to see it, but like all our excitement kind of took a hit once all those negative reviews and reactions came out for it. So kind of had to build it back up. But this one, I was just pumped all the way through, and probably the most excited I'm going to be for a movie this year, other than Star Wars next month. That's how excited I was for Justice League. And then, yeah, seeing some generally positive reactions from a lot of people on social media and people whose opinions I respect, saying it's good, not without its flaws, but it's a really enjoyable, good movie. So that just added to my excitement going into it. So I was pumped. And then, yeah, just like you, once it was over, there was this great feeling I had. There was a great buzz surrounding it once it was over. I mean, the end credit scene, it's hard for it not to leave you with that feeling. But even if there wasn't that end credit scene, just the movie, how it ended by itself, just left me with a really good, positive feeling about, finally seeing these iconic heroes, minus one, together on screen for the first time. It was a DC fan's dream come true. So, yeah, I loved it right afterwards. And I just, had this buzz feeling driving home. Like, I saw it with my brother. We went out to dinner afterwards talking about it. We were just geeking out on all the awesome stuff that it had. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to dive into this one. So, yeah, both of our opinions right after we saw it was really, really good. So, those are
fun.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, that was you were one of the first people, other than, Ryan, some of the, for the Drake, knowing that, Terrence isn't actually going to see it till probably after Thanksgiving, which I could not wrap my head around.
I don't know how he's going to do that.
Yeah, I know. Terrence, you have a stronger will than I am. Maybe that's why there's no Green Lantern, because he has that great will.
Yeah.
But I looked up your tweet like right away to see, knowing that we're going to be talking about this, to going, oh, what side of the fence that you're going to be on. I think I even tweeted back like, we're not going to have a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah, we should tell everyone this is going to be like a 20-minute podcast, so we're almost done.
Yeah, we're almost over.
Yeah, so those are our general reactions, but now we're going to get into it. So I'm throwing out the full spoiler warning out there. If you haven't seen it yet, for some reason you're listening to this episode already, this is where we're going to go deep into the movie. So the spoiler warning is out there. So I guess to start off, I just kind of want to go, before we get into the characters, just the overall story of the film and what you thought of it. Because for me, this is something, even before the movie came out, where I just kept saying, don't make it an overly complicated story like BVS was. There's so many convoluted plot points in there that didn't need to be there. Just for Justice League, you got to have enough time bringing the team together, making sure you establish them together as characters. So just have it be a simple story where, what Steppenwolf was coming to invade Earth with the parademons looking for the Mother Box. Boom, that's all you need. Just have that be what drives the team to come together. And that's exactly what the movie was, pretty much. And I was totally okay with that. It's not going to go down as like one of the greatest comic book movie stories ever, but it served its purpose very well, I thought, with, bringing the team together. Because that's what the movie rests on, these characters of the Justice League. And boy, they didn't nail that pretty much for everybody. So the story of the film with, Steppenwolf, well, first off, with Bruce investigating the parademons, noticing that they're out there. I love that opening sequence with Batman. To me, it was pretty much almost like Justice League #1 from Jeff Johns and Jim Lee's New 52 launch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I just loved, like, the only thing missing was, Hal Jordan coming down and having that awesome banter with Batman. But still, I thought that was a great opening sequence and set the movie off on a great note, I thought, and what the story was going to be. So yeah, I thought the story was perfectly fine for it and had enough cool, DC Universe Easter eggs and just laying down the foundation and the history of the DC Universe, which I thought was awesome. So I thought the story for Justice League was perfectly fine.
The story for me, that's kind of where I was too. I don't want to try not to talk about Avengers and make a comparison, but I thought even that setup for that one was a little too much. This is what I really wanted. The most important thing, we're seeing the characters. And I was telling somebody else the other day, this kind of feels like, and I mean this with the utmost respect, this feels like an episode of Justice League Unlimited, where Steppenwolf, Darkseid, whatever it was, comes down, and the important thing is the team's got to get together and they got to stop the bad guy from taking over the world, and that's it. That's all I wanted. And that's what we got. And the bigger thing was the story and interaction between each of the characters. Batman to Cyborg, Batman to Aquaman, Aquaman to Wonder Woman. Just the mix up in dialogue back and forth. I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this on screen. And to know there's no convoluted plot out there, and I don't expect it to win an Oscar for being like The Godfather or something. It's a superhero team up. Defeating a big bad guy. That's all I needed.
Totally. Yep. And I'm so glad it stuck that story route with it. I mean, they didn't. I think that's something where they learned the lesson from Batman v Superman, where just don't make it so convoluted and overly complicated, where you sometimes either lose focus on one aspect of a story and find one not as good as the other. So I'm just glad they stuck with one thing, and I thought it worked really, really well. And overall, too. Just with regards to where the movie started off, I forgot to mention because that open scene with Batman, but I did not expect that movie to start off with, kind of like just a kid with his iPhone filming Superman. Yeah. I thought that was great. I mean, it was totally unexpected, but I was talking about how, the sequence with Batman set up the story for the rest of the movie really well. But that opening sequence with Superman was where I thought set the tone for how the movie was going to end. It was a nice callback to that, just a little setup to where it's going to lead up to the very end once he returns. Because, I mean, let's face it, we all knew he was coming back.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised that Henry Cavill and sometimes Warner Brothers were still trying to keep it a secret during like the press junket. But I just thought that was a kind of both great bookends, a great way to start it and then end it with Superman. So what did you think of that very first opening sequence?
I thought it was a really neat and really cute little scene that Superman's having a conversation essentially with us, the audience member, but through the eyes of a little kid, that he's this close to standing to one of his heroes and getting a chance to talk to him. And like you said, it's at that stage of that hopefulness and the brightness that Superman represents, that he was basically telling us, the audience. So when we get into the movie, we're realizing what Bruce is realizing, that hopefulness is gone. I know we'll talk about it later, but one of my favorite lines Bruce ends up saying in the movie when he's talking to Alfred, we'll save that when we get there, but it kind of parallels itself, what Superman represents and what Batman represents, and the knowledge that Batman has with Superman now. So I thought the beginning would set it up great.
Yeah, I just love, Henry Cavill's Superman and his interaction with those kids. I mean, that's something we've been wanting to see or hope to see. Not so much in Man of Steel, because I still love Man of Steel and figure, we only saw one day of Superman, his first day on the job. So that was something I would love to see. Like, if he got a sequel before Justice League or Batman versus Superman, that's the type of Superman I think we were all expecting. And that was just a tease for what was to come later. So yeah, I loved that. Great interaction and just a fun, unique way to start a movie. But getting a little bit into the characters now, but before we go into each one, I just got to say, I loved how the movie was paced and spread out between the characters, because I think that was another worry I had going into it, where we've heard about the reshoots, how Warner Brothers demanded that this be under 2 hours or right at the 2 hour mark. So we knew there's going to be a lot of stuff cut. And I was a little worried about it feeling rushed, especially at the beginning, setting up all these characters. But I got to say, overall, I did not get that feeling at all while watching it. I thought it was very well paced. Maybe certain scenes could have been a little longer, I thought, certain moments with characters, but it wasn't to a point where, man, this is like really moving fast or this feels choppy. I know certain reactions from fans feel that way a little bit that I've saw, but for me personally watching it, I didn't get that feeling at all. I thought it was very well paced. It was, at the beginning spread out, I thought, very evenly between the characters, introducing, of course, seeing Batman and Wonder Woman first, the characters we already know, but then getting our introductions to Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. I thought it was spread out really well. It was edited, I thought, nicely, at least for me. And that's something that reminded me, and this goes back to a feeling I had watching the first Avengers movie too, where it's that feeling when you're reading an event comic with the team, and the issue kind of starts off showing you different moments of the characters that are going to, team up to fight this threat later on, and just giving you the introduction. I loved how Avengers did that in the beginning of their movie. And I felt Justice League did that really well too, with introducing all the characters we're going to see. So that was something that was a concern going in, but didn't end up being criticism I had at all. I thought it worked really well.
I knew that going in, that some people had said it just seemed like you were on a freight train right from the beginning, and it was going from one story beat right into the next. So as the movie was going, I didn't feel that way until we get to the tunnel scene where the Justice League meets Steppenwolf for the first time. That part forward, I did kind of feel a little bit of, a few scenes needed to breathe here or there. There was a scene in particular where they're in the Nightcrawler where you could instantly tell, like, whoa, they just cut something.
Yeah, especially
right there, because
we saw it in the trailer too.
yeah. So, I mean, we have the benefit of seeing the trailers and all that stuff, but overall, I think I will agree with 90% of this. I didn't feel rushed, like I was holding on to the edge of my seat, and I had my wife by me the whole entire time, and she's a good barometer of going, we're podcasters, we're into this stuff all the time. So being with somebody that knows, like, she knew all the characters, but as we were leaving the theater, I was like, so did you feel rushed at all? She's like, no. She's like, I understood what was going on the whole time. She's like, just about everything made sense to her, and the things that didn't only were just because she didn't have previous knowledge. So yeah, for the most part, I will agree with the way it was edited, and knowing that I think the original runtime was like 2 hours 35, 2:45, something like that. That they cut that much time out of it, I was going to be like, wow, there's going to be huge chunks in this movie like BVS that just don't make any sense, and I didn't feel that way at all. So that makes me go, now I'm curious to see what they did cut.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as much as I said I enjoyed how it was paced and edited, especially in the beginning, it doesn't mean I would like to see those stuff they cut out and certain scenes extended a little bit longer to give it that room to breathe, like you said. So yeah, I totally agree. But I was glad as I was watching the movie that a little worry I had going into it didn't end up coming to fruition. So that was really cool. But yeah, so let's get into some of the characters, and we'll start off, of course, with the one we're all looking forward to seeing the most, I would say, as Batman fans. So we'll start with Ben Affleck's Batman. And right off the bat, I mean, all the criticism that BVS got, I think across the board, most fans would agree that Ben Affleck gave a really, really great Batman performance, despite if you didn't agree with some of the characterizations they did for Batman, but his performance was great. So I was excited to see him as Batman again. And especially now where we know he's going to be like the more traditional Batman that I think we were looking forward to seeing, instead of the one we got in BVS, who was killing a bunch of people left and right and wanted to kill Superman. But as I mentioned at the beginning, that opening sequence was so cool. It felt like watching a new Batman movie in a way. It's hard to describe this awesome feeling as a fan that you had watching it. Oh man, this is awesome. I'm seeing a new Batman movie, but oh no, wait, this is better. I'm seeing a Justice League movie, and it's starting off with this awesome Batman sequence. So it kind of had a little Batman 89 vibe to it, I thought, at the beginning, with him stopping the robber on the rooftop. At the same time, I thought it was just going to be, him stopping a robber and, just a little quick introduction to Batman. Then maybe he'd go back to Alfred and get back to work on finding, Barry Allen, Arthur Curry, and Vic Stone. But no, it was using that Robert to draw out a parademon, which I did not expect, but it was awesome. And like I said, reminded me of that first Justice League issue in the New 52, and that parademon taking Batman on a spin out in the sky. It was just a really cool, awesome Batman sequence that, I would probably say that was the best sequence with Batman in the movie as far as action point goes. But throughout the course of the film, I just, really like the idea of Batman being the one to try to bring the team together. And we knew that going in, but I thought they executed it really well in the film. Trying to first get Aquaman to join, and then Barry Allen. Then once Wonder Woman comes into the picture and knows that she's with him, he sends her to get Victor Stone. So I thought the whole dynamic with Batman trying to bring the team together was great, but yet having that reluctancy to lead them as well, knowing that he has to do this, but it's not really something he wants or he feels that he's the right person to do when it comes to leading this team into battle against, an alien invasion. That's why the back of my mind to bring Superman back is at the forefront of what he wants to do too, because not only does he feel he let him down in BVS and that promise he made to him that he won't fail him in life, but just the fact that Superman would be the right leader and person to lead this group against, any threat that would come. So I just like Batman's whole motivation throughout the film. And just, again, I thought Ben Affleck gave another great performance, not only as Batman, but in the Bruce Wayne moments too. So I hate to bring this up as a little buzzkill, but all the talk about him maybe not coming back, this could be it. It's like, I hate for that to happen, because I just love seeing his portrayal as Batman, and especially here, and the way it ends leaves us a great taste in your mouth that at the same time would be, a fitting way, I guess, or a fitting movie for Ben Affleck to leave Batman on, but there's so much more they can do with him. So hopefully that's not the case, but for this movie, I thought he was great again as Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. That opening sequence, I've been thinking about it all day, whether I was going to say this on the podcast or I really want to formulate my opinion more. I want to see it a second time, but I was talking to my wife about it and my fellow other podcasters and YouTube channelers that I talk with a lot. And I said, I think this might be my favorite Batman scene ever in any live action movie. I was really trying to go through all of the films, from the Nolan films to, I could kind of easily dismiss Batman and Robin. And even though Batman Forever I do like, and 89 Returns, and going, what are some of my favorite scenes? And then I started thinking of other iterations of Batman from the Arkham video games and the animated series, Justice League Unlimited. And I felt like there was all of that stuff was in this opening scene, with him going from gargoyles to swooping around the top of the water tower. The guy can't find him. Batman's using his grappling gun when he's dangling the guy over, and Batman says, what are you doing? He's like, they smell fear. That whole sequence. And even when he uses the grapple gun and attaches the parademon to the wall, and the parademon's trying to, bite at him and blows up. There's even that little move that, I was talking to someone, I'm like, that is straight up out of the Arkham game, where it's almost as if he sprayed the gel on the wall and blows it up. Batman does that little turn of like, oh, the wall's going to explode. That I loved that opening scene. If Matt Reeves does a whole entire movie like that opening scene, I'm going to lose it. That might be one of my favorite Batman scenes of all time in there. So I want to see it again to really cement that in, but I love that opening sequence.
Yeah, it was great. Like I said before, set the stage perfectly for what's to come later on in the movie. So yeah, great introduction to Batman. Totally agree. So yeah, next up, this would be Wonder Woman, who I thought had just an equally as awesome moment as Batman with her introduction. And yeah, you can kind of say it, the whole sequence doesn't have anything to do with the main plot of the movie with Steppenwolf and Parademon, but I don't care. It was still just a great introduction to Wonder Woman for this movie. Just her stopping, a terrorist attack in the building with a lot of civilians in there. It was just great to see. The action was really great on it. her using the lasso of truth, just, bringing that one of those gunmen just up and interrogating him, and in a totally different style than Batman would interrogate someone. That was a good contrast. But I just love the action sequence there too, especially after she gets rid of the bomb, but that gunman was still just going to start shooting all the civilians in there, and just seeing her deflect heavy machine gun bullets, firing them with her bracelets in that fast-paced motion, I thought was really cool, and something we didn't see really in the first Wonder Woman movie because they didn't have weapons like that back then. But
right.
Seeing it now in the modern day and what she can do, I thought, and we've seen it a lot in like Justice League, the animated series, and certain the Justice League animated movies that come out with her just deflecting bullets really fast. So it was cool to see that in live action. And again, kind of like how Batman had a great sequence to introduce us back to him, Wonder Woman I thought had a great one as well.
Oh yeah, her opening scene was really good, and I was trying to watch from where she was, that in my mind in the end of the Wonder Woman movie when she leaps out over the city.
Uh-huh.
I would like to think that it's that moment she's leaping to. So I was trying to go, where was she at in London, when all that was going on? And when the trailers were coming out, thinking, they weren't showing us the face of the guy coming in. But I do like movies like that you get these little vignettes. Mm-hmm. Even if the Batman scene didn't have anything to do with the initial plot, you're just kind of like, here's this character that we're going to be talking about, and here's this character. And the Wonder Woman piece was a nice little, like I said, vignette that just says, hey, here's Wonder Woman. Here's the character that you just saw recently, and she's doing her thing. Like you said, it's not connected to the plot of the story at the moment. It's just currently what she's doing. And I liked hearing the Wonder Woman theme kind of mixed in there in a different way. And I don't know if it's something you want to talk about later or not, but the way Danny Elfman played that theme I thought was really pretty cool.
Yeah, it was just like full on orchestral.
Yes,
I thought worked really well, and kind of wish we heard more of it throughout the movie, but it was really good in that sequence where she's just standing on that statue and ready to jump in to save the day. It was fit really well. So yeah, I thought that was a great use of it also. So yeah, moving on to Bruce's adventure to try to find the rest of the Justice League, and because after he gets after that opening sequence with the Parademon, he goes back on the plane with Alfred, which we saw in the trailer, but it was still cool to hear that little nod to the Penguin, and that 20-year history that this version of Batman has. It's just really cool that at certain moments we can get those little callbacks to stuff that us fans would be familiar with. But just him looking at those video footage and the files on Barry Allen, Arthur Curry, and Victor Stone, and just kind of laying down the groundwork of the next characters we're going to meet, and how at first they, it says that Victor Stone was deceased, and which I thought was, an interesting, because I was curious how they were going to do Cyborg, and this is another thing where the edit of the movie was going to come into play, because we've seen footage in the trailer where Victor Stone was, just normal, him in his on the football field, his jacket, just walking around. So I was curious to see if we were going to get a flashback or something of that with him, or he was going to, once we were introduced to Cyborg, we were going to, he was going to tell a story of what happened. But, once that file said, he was deceased, I just kind of got, okay, we're probably just going to go straight full on, be introduced to Cyborg, and eventually that would turn out to be right, where all that stuff with just Victor Stone got cut. But, before we get into Cyborg, if I remember right, I've only seen it once so far, so I don't remember the introductions in order as far as who was shown to us first. But the one that I recall, I'm going to go with talking about Barry Allen in The Flash next, because I've heard that was one of the things going into it. I've heard great things about Ezra Miller's performance as Barry Allen in The Flash, and every opinion I've heard of that was correct. I loved his portrayal as Barry Allen in The Flash, and to me, it reminded me, going back to the Justice League animated series comparison, he reminded me more of that version of Wally West.
Yes.
Just, the one cracking the jokes, always having that happy-go-lucky attitude. But I just love the first scene he was in, going in to visit his dad in prison, signing in. And then that guy's behind him, this big old guy telling him to hurry up. And then you see him turn around to look at him. He just waves his hand. Okay, he's obviously using his powers, but what did he do there? And then they cut to the guy. He just face painted him all over with that pen. It was hilarious.
I thought it was even better that the security guard was like, "Are those prescription?"
Yeah. So that was great, just setting up the type of Flash we're going to get in this movie. I just cracking up so hard at that moment. So, but then it transitioned to, him talking to his father about, him wanting to move on with his life, try to find a good job and to, move on from him, which is, classic Barry Allen background story, which it's kind of what I was thinking. Like I compared him to the Wally West version of the Flash, which, you know how sometimes these studios don't like having two versions of the same character on a movie and a TV show, and which made me was kind of surprised that they went with Barry Allen in the movie after the TV show was already established with that version. And I just think the reason they did that was because Barry Allen's Flash just has a great background story and a great motivation for the character that it's hard not to use that for our first feature film Flash as well. So I have no problems with it as far as there being two different Flashes out there, but his story is just so great. So even though it was familiar, I still enjoyed seeing it played out on screen again. We didn't get, full into his origin story, but, Bruce did mention when he was talking to Alfred how his dad's in prison for murdering his mother, but Barry believes his innocence and is trying to prove his innocence. So it was cool that they kept that all in there, establishing that without necessarily showing us. But yeah, Ezra Miller was just great throughout. I mean, one-liners it has is like I said, he was anxious and excited to be a part of the team, but yet I loved how they showed his him still being nervous about it and being like really a rookie in the hero business. And I love that line in the trailer, but it was great to hear it in the actual movie too when they were about to take on the parademons, where he goes, that's where he was really nervous. I liked how they showed that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what do I do? I know you guys are anxious to fight, but I just push people and run away real fast. And that was a great Batman moment too, where he just tells him, like, just save one. That's all you got to do. And he's like, what do I do after? You'll know. Just, a great moment as Batman showing his experience as a crime fighter. And then, just easily, having this rookie hero, ease him into that role, become like the protector of civilians and the people that were captured at that particular moment in that sequence. Yeah, so I liked how even that played out throughout the course of the movie, where it was established that Flash was going to be, the hero who rescued everybody. When civilians needed to be evacuated, they turned to Flash. So it all stemmed from that moment where Batman just told him, save one, and you'll know what to do. And that carried out through the course of the movie, where we see Flash as, the one who would go if someone needed to get out, Flash was the one to do it. So I just love that aspect. And his interactions with the rest of the league was just so good. Him and Cyborg had a good rapport together. That's grave digging sequence where they were trying to dig up Superman's body. This is how Flash thought it was wrong, but at the same time thinking it was a bonding moment for him and Cyborg to get to know each other and not getting that fist bump until the very end of the movie. So stuff like that was what made the interactions between these characters so great. So yeah, Flash I thought was awesome, and might, other than Batman and Wonder Woman, the standout new character in this movie. He was perfect.
Yeah, I loved, like, Ezra Miller at first, seeing him in Batman versus Superman, which I think at the time he was filming something else. So he had his like real long hair and was kind of scruffy. And I think they even kind of, if I remember right, like we said, we've only seen it once, but I think Batman even kind of made a reference to that. Like, he's trying to stay off the grid, even has changed appearance or something like that. I don't know if I'm remembering that correct or not, but I wasn't totally sure what I thought of Ezra Miller because I have not seen any of his other films or know any of his body of work. And I was like, wow, I really like Grant's performance on the TV show. This was one of those where I was like, oh, just forget it. Bring in Grant from the TV show. You've already got a fan base there. But as soon as I started seeing the trailers, I thought, you know what? I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to like Ezra Miller as the Flash. And that was really cool, that what you said earlier about, sometimes the TV and, DC as a whole doesn't like to have, like, we're not going to have Batman in two places. There's only just one of each of the characters. And I think they did a wise thing by using Barry, that you already have a built-in audience with a TV show. So it's not like, well, this is the Wally West Flash and you've got to do more exposition. And I was really hoping they weren't going to change Barry's history at all in this, it was like it's already working in the TV show. If we have any casual fans of a TV show come into the Justice League, this should feel like very similar Flash for the most part, as far as the story and the backup. And my wife was like, she's like that worked well for her. Going, oh, this is just kind of like the TV show Barry. Dad's framed for murder, and it's the mother is killed, which means Reverse Flash is out there somewhere. So I thought that was really cool. But we're getting to see Barry before he gets into the police force, which means he got struck by lightning in a little different way, probably.
Yeah, that's true.
Doing something else, since it wasn't at the police lab. But I was fine with that. And the chemistry that he had with his father was just kind of really a heartbreaking scene where his dad was like, you've got to go on with your life. Forget about me. I don't want to drag you down. And just, he was not hearing it at all. And getting to kind of see the range that Ezra Miller had makes me really want to see a Flash movie with him in it. Like that sold me right away. That scene alone might be one of my favorite scenes. And then the button on it when he gets the job and he's holding the paper up there, and it's inferred like, I'm going to be part of the police force. I'm going to get you out of this. We're going to figure this out. You wanted me to get a job. This is the job, that I have. So I thought that was just beautiful. And hearing that the runtime was cut, I thought, I really don't want to lose Henry Allen. I thought, well, I guess if we do, but to see that we got 2 scenes with the both of them, I thought was just absolutely perfect. So Ezra Miller really won me over as the Flash in this movie. Yeah,
I mean, we know the Aquaman movie's coming next year, but I think if anyone, they should greenlight a movie for right away to coming out of Justice League is the Flash. Get that your next priority. Because it was so good, and you just want to see more of his portrayal of the Flash instantly when it's over. So yeah, he was great. And
the other thing that I liked real quick before you go into the next one is, like I said, the kid was the eyes of the audience. Barry became the eyes for us in there, and him geeking out and being all over the Batcave, sitting in the Batmobile, going over here. I mean, that would have been me in there. I would have been all over the Batcave while Bruce is trying to tell me something. I that would be the greatest thing I'd ever done, is to hang out in Batman's Batcave. And they allowed Barry Allen to be that person for the audience. I thought was a really good call on Snyder / Joss to do.
Totally agree. Yep. Yeah, I forgot about that sequence, but I'm glad you mentioned it right when they entered the Batcave. But this even coins the phrase Batcave there.
Yeah.
So, which I kind of like to think, because we know Robin exists in this universe, that he did first. But just that, you instantly think that when you see it for the first time, kind of someone who would geek out like he did for it. It was just great, and him just zipping around the different corners of it was just really, really cool. So yeah. We'll move on to Aquaman next, who going into it, even when Jason Momoa was cast as Aquaman, we knew this was going to be, a different kind of Aquaman than what we're used to in the comics. But I thought he worked really well. I mean, this version of Aquaman, and served his personality, served the team dynamic. I thought really, really good. And I love the moments of Bruce trying to recruit him. And we saw the moment in the trailer where he's at that bar or whatever, asking everyone in there if they know this man. But I really like the conversation they had after that, where they're just walking outside and before he goes back into the ocean, just, not playing any games where Bruce is trying to hide anything. He tells him that he's Batman. What's going on? Have you heard of Superman and all that? I just love Aquaman's reaction, so that whole, so you dress like a bat thing. And because we knew that in the trailer too, but that it was set up there and then made that moment pay off a little more funnier once he does see Batman in costume. Because at that moment when he's talking to Bruce, he's not sure if he would actually do that. Is he crazy enough to actually dress like a bat? So that whole playful banter they had at the beginning, I thought was really cool. And even the reluctancy of him not wanting to, join Bruce in his cause right away, but yet, once he saves that fisherman on the boat, and it describes it being attacked, by like this creature falling from the sky, and he sees that green goop, and which causes him to go to Atlantis. I thought, the progression of it I thought worked really well. This goes back to my whole thing was how it was paced and edited together. It just reminds me like how you would read, again, an event comic book that's setting up the characters, and because you know they each have those sections where they're just off on their own, setting up exposition and their reasoning to join into the fight. And I really liked Aquaman's when he goes back to Atlantis. It was a cool little action sequence of him fighting Steppenwolf and a little tease of some of the stuff we're going to see in his own movie. And, you know, getting introduced to Mara, I thought was really cool. And Amber Heard was really, it was a small role, but I thought she was really great as Mara from that little bit of dialogue that they had. And just her powers on display, too. It's awesome to see. So, yeah, a little bit of setting up the backstory for Aquaman, too, in their conversation, you know, just being DC comic geeks, hearing that history being told on screen was just one of those geek out moments where, you know, she's talking about how, you know, she knows his mother, she respected her, and then Aquaman still, you know, being resentful, like, oh, but she left me like all alone and all that stuff. So that's why, you know, setting up the seeds for him not taking up the throne of Atlantis and his reasons why, which they'll of course get into in his full standalone movie, but yet he knows of his heritage. He obviously knows of Atlantis because he tells her there's this, you know, a thing I need, like before I go, which of course is the trident, which he uses on later in the movie. So Aquaman, I thought, worked really well in just setting up his story, but then when he gets in interaction with the team, I thought was great. And they were kind of setting him up a little bit too, I would say, in the trailers to be maybe not so much as comic relief as Flash, but to have really funny moments, or, you know, be that moment where he jumps on the Batman, he's all, yeah, then when Cyborg catches him, he's all like, my man, and all that stuff. So, but I'm just glad there was more to him than just that, which was nice to see. So, yeah, Aquaman, I thought they did a really great job on. So, just, again, just moving down the line of the different Justice League members that I thought really, really nailed.
Yeah, I really liked this version of Aquaman. Reminds me of the Peter David 1990s hook hand Aquaman, just with kind of in look and kind of what was going on, which was a great run. If you haven't read the Peter David run of Aquaman, this is really kind of where this Aquaman, I think, is loosely based on. But I like that he's very similar in a way to Batman as kind of a loner, and it's kind of even shown, like you were talking about with Mara when he goes back to Atlantis, where he's a man of two worlds and doesn't feel like he belongs either place. Like, he's helping people bring in, you know, fish and food at the, you know, at the shore, and it must spend enough time in Atlantis, but enough that, you know, he's supposed to be king, but doesn't want to go down that route. And I think out of all the Justice League members was probably, if you look at all their story arcs, was probably the least formulated is the wrong word. It was most underserved, and I don't mean that bad, because I think looking at a runtime for a movie, you know, in a year we're going to get an Aquaman movie, so you can spend a little less time on this one character, give us enough information that gets excited, but in the back of your mind, you know, we're going to get an Aquaman movie. It's done and in the can and being edited and all that stuff. So a lot of the questions we have about this character, we're going to get in about a year. So I was okay with what they gave us. You know, I didn't know if he was going to be like the Brosifer, you know, Aquaman, but he was kind of reluctant through the whole thing. And the scene in the trailer that we saw with, you know, Alfred working in, I don't know if he's in the Batcave or he's in the forest or wherever, but with the glass shaking, everybody thinks that that's Superman's entrance. How did Aquaman know that they were going to be in the sewers, that he was going to show up right at that minute? I want to say I think that's Superman's entrance, like where Alfred says, I knew you would come, or he said, I hoped you would come. Yeah. I half wonder if that's not Aquaman that shows up and that he says, but whatever he says, Aquaman jumps into the water in the Batcave and takes off and then meets up with the team in the tunnel. After having seen the movie, like, how does Aquaman even know to show up there? That's kind of what I think ends up happening. I could be wrong. Hopefully an extended cut will show that. But I really liked Jason Momoa's performance. When they said that he was going to be Aquaman, I was like, cool, I'm on. And I was glad that there were more layers to Aquaman, and the scene that I thought was funny when he's sitting on the Batmobile,
Yes,
and happens to be sitting on the lasso of truth.
that was
they're
great.
all trying to point out, and at one point, like Bruce points to him, and my wife leans over. She goes, "Did he just point to his crotch?" And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And we'll look at Wonder Woman's face, and he goes over to Barry. He's like, "If you say anything about this,
Yeah.
I thought, and Barry's reaction, like it was that was one of my favorite moments with Aquaman, other than him just being, this real strong, tough guy. But the show, there's a sense of humor and humanity to Aquaman. I thought was really, really cool. But that was a cool scene.
Yeah, I loved it. That was one of the big laugh out loud moments for me and the audience in the theater. It's crazy because it was a really nice transition to where he was saying, I think we're all going to die. This kind of looks hopeless, but I'll go out as a warrior. But then it was like a smooth transition to where he starts revealing all that stuff about himself, where to a point, maybe, I should have caught this earlier, but when it was revealed that the lasso of truth was on him, I was like, oh, of course, that's why he's doing that. But I thought it played out really good, where it felt natural that he just, for some reason, transitioned to revealing about that himself. But when to get the reveal of the lasso of truth, it's like, okay, that explains it, but it does it in such a great and funny way. So yeah, it was a great use of his character in that moment too. So, but that's interesting what you said about that moment with Alfred maybe being cut. And I can kind of think that maybe that is the case, because there were moments in the trailer that were total fake outs. We'll get to it later, but one of them that sticks out to me was in the final trailer that we got, where Lois is talking to Clark and he tells her about, I'll take that as a yes, and the ring and all that. But then it gets revealed, the next shot in the trailer is her in bed waking up, realizing that, it's a dream. But that sequence wasn't a dream. It totally played out. And they just edited together the trailer to make you think so. So maybe that was something similar to that moment with Alfred saying, he'd said you come with Aquaman. So I wouldn't be too surprised, but I never thought about it. But that's, could be a good call.
And when people were saying that there's a hint of green, in Alfred's glasses, that could be, a Green Lantern. I mean, Aquaman's suit is almost completely green in this. So that green you may be seeing could have been Aquaman, but I guess we'll have to wait for an extended cut to find out.
Yeah, I really do hope we get an extended cut. I mean, we got it for BVS, Suicide Squad. This one, I don't think it needs it, to help the movie overall, like those two movies did, or made the movie better. This is an extended cut for this one would just be more great stuff for DC fans to eat up. And
even just being Star Wars fans, that we all want this, like an extended cut. I want a whole new hope with Biggs and everything. Even if it's just deleted scenes, like here's the scenes that we cut, even if it's not integrated into the movie, which I hope it is. But if I at least can see the scenes that were cut, I'll be satisfied with that.
Totally, yeah. And I think we will get those. I just hope there's a good chunk of them on the Blu-ray to come out. So
yes,
here's hoping. Yeah, so next we'll move on to Cyborg, who I don't know, Cyborg's never been, one of my top tier favorite DC characters. I've always liked him, but, he wasn't like quite up there on the level as like, Green Lantern, Flash, and some of the other members of the Justice League. But it was still cool to see him in the movie, and he was portrayed really, really well by Ray Fisher in this film. And just, again, another one of those characters who, had a good story arc throughout the course of the film where, like I said before, we're introduced to him as Cyborg already. We didn't get the history of how he became Cyborg. We got a little bit of a BVS, but we didn't actually see the accident. We didn't see him as a normal human at all. But at the same time, I thought the scenes that they did have in there with him talking to his dad really did establish what he's going through and just how much of a struggle this is for him, which, is essential to Cyborg as a character. And then to finally have him grow into accepting all his powers and abilities and to live with it. And the first time we're introduced to him in that conversation he had with his dad really sold that point home where, he views himself as a monster and, this really isn't living. And I like that concern he has where he was hearing all this noise and leading to that connected with the parademons. And he even mentioned, ever since Superman, people were wondering when's the next alien invasion. Well, what happens if it's me? I just like that about him having that concern. And then that line he tells his dad where he goes, "Oh, you haven't told like the people at Star Labs that there's a monster, and he goes, of course I haven't told him about you. He's like, well, I wasn't talking about me, referring to his dad as being the monster to make him like that. So just great stuff. And then the whole recruiting aspect with Wonder Woman trying to bring him onto the team. I like that. They had a great conversation when they met in that alleyway in the street, but I like the computer conversation they had before where, Cyborg's calling out Diana, telling her, yeah, I know who you are. I know who Bruce Wayne is. But then Diana, calls him out saying, oh, I knew you were watching us the whole time. Like that point where she was talking to Bruce out on that grass fields there in the park. So I just like the back and forth they're having where they're like one-upping each other and how awesome they are at like deducing it or knowing about the other. So I thought that was great. And then him finally joining the team and, slowly easing into, his abilities and learning how to use them. First, helping out the team when he got into the Nightcrawler vehicle and, started taking control of that. And then, but at the same time, too, still having struggled with his powers. And we'll get to the sequence a little bit later. But when like a system starts going into defense mode, once, they see Superman and how he couldn't control it yet. So it's knowing that he's still getting used to his abilities, but then by the time we get to the very end, he's pretty much almost in full control of it and accepting it. And his role as, the tech guy, so to speak, and the one that has to, without him, they probably wouldn't even be able to stop those mother boxes from the Unity. So I just like the progression of him, and Ray Fisher did a great job of portraying, the tragic aspect of Vic Stone and that accident he had is becoming, this more machine than man type character now. And just, his interactions with the team, I thought was different from the others, but it served the dynamic and the chemistry of the team really well. So I thought Ray Fisher did really good as Cyborg.
Yeah, I absolutely loved Cyborg. Out of the new characters, as much as I liked Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa as the Flash and Aquaman respectively, the breakout character for me was Cyborg. Growing up in the 80s and watching the Super Friends and being right there as Wolfman and Perez are writing and creating the new Teen Titans, and Cyborg is an integral part of that. And, just watching the Super Friends on TV and seeing this Cyborg character, I thought was such a neat character, and has, other than, the two Robins and the Teen Titans, was always my second favorite Titan. I always thought he was so cool and had such unique potential. And then when the New 52 started, you're removing Martian Manhunter and putting in Cyborg. At first I was like, oh, I miss Martian Manhunter, but Cyborg makes so much sense being a part of the Justice League, that he's a walking, living, breathing computer. And I loved how Ray Fisher played with the Cyborg character of, am I a monster? I'm not worthy. Have you told anybody about me? I might as well be dead. I'm not going to serve and be useful to anyone or anything. He hears these noises all the time, and just really grew into the character, and that this is one of his first big movies and he gets to be Cyborg. I thought the character came off really good. As much as I love the Cyborg character, I think it might be really hard. I think he's kind of like an Incredible Hulk kind of character. The Cyborg character works so well integrated in with group teams that I don't know if he could sustain his own movie, but I think he would work so well, like we've heard in different things, like a buddy cop type of movie with the Flash, and even the grave robbing scene, that they had a really good chemistry there. And his chemistry with Superman later in the movie, I thought was also very, very good. Ray Fisher's Cyborg just notches it just a little bit, I think, just because I grew up with this character. And just seeing him on the screen, this was one of those characters I thought I'm never going to see Cyborg anywhere. And I think thanks to part to the New 52 and Jeff Johns, Cyborg has really been elevated tremendously. And, Teen Titans Go, he's very popular in that. So I loved Cyborg's character in this movie.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I never, thought he would be in the movie, or just actually viewed him a member as a Justice League member, because like I've always associated with him with the Teen Titans for so long, And then once he got into the New 52 and became, one of the founding members of the Justice League, it took a little while to get used to, but by the time we're at now, several years later, now with the Justice League movie, it feels natural that like almost he's always been a part of the Justice League now, because it just works so well as far as tying in his origin story to, the formation of the League.
Oh, yeah. And I need to say this, too. My wife loves to rename characters. Throw a little Star Wars reference. My wife likes to refer to Boba Fett as Baby Fat. And her name for Cyborg, for some strange reason, is Cyborg Bob. I have no idea why. Cyborg Bob. I don't know why. So Cyborg is one of her favorite characters in this movie as well. And she leaned over as I'm watching the movie and whispers, Cyborg Bob. And I started chuckling during it. So I did a little shout out to my wife there.
Oh, that's awesome. So, yeah, that's the main group of the Justice League. We knew going into the movie that was going to be the focal point, but we all knew there was another member of the team. It wouldn't be the Justice League without him. We knew he was going to show up, and that, of course, is going to be Superman. The only question was, how would he come back, and, what would his role be in the movie? So that was the thing out of everything going into it where I did not want to know anything about Superman in this film, how he was brought back, what's his role going to be, in the eventual final battle, and just how he was going to be portrayed. So that was the thing I was really excited to see in Justice League. And I got to say, I was taken by surprise by the reason they brought him back, how it was tied into the mother boxes. And that was, the catalyst to bring Superman back to life. I was just kind of expecting to be, just kind of like the comic book where he was never really dead, but, his body was just kind of in a state of rest, and he just had to, eventually come back. He would eventually come back based on his Kryptonian body. And I didn't think they'd go into a whole, before, like the comic was in the Fortress of Solitude and all the Kryptonian technology that was there to help with that. But this is the effect that the Kryptonian, the Kryptonian body is so different than humans, where it might look like he's dead. It's actually in a state of rest, and he'll eventually come back. So I was surprised when the mother boxes was the reason that, he did come back. But at the same time, too, I was also surprised that Bruce, his idea was to use it to bring him back, knowing after that action sequence when they fought Steppenwolf how they're no match for him. We need Superman or the world is going to be destroyed. So I was surprised that it was actually the Justice League, especially Batman, the one to, set this in motion to bring him back. And I did like the conversations they had where, there were some that were for it, some that were against it. You had to have that dysfunctional moment between the team where they don't agree on in this movie. You got to have that in every team up movie. So that was the one in this one. I thought it worked well. I mean, Bruce did come off like a jerk when he had that conversation with Diane, but at the same time too, I did like how, there was a reasoning behind it, not just to bring Superman back, but in case, it didn't, he knew she would be the better leader for this team. And I guess before we go into Superman's return, I did like that whole dynamic where, Batman and Bruce, that conversation he had with Wonder Woman, where they're kind of, reconciling with each other after, because she was like, they were really butting heads in the middle portion of this movie when they were bringing Superman back. And I just like the conversation where at the end where he's brought back and they're, trying to patch things up, where he viewed her as, the natural leader for this team. But her reasoning for not wanting to, I thought was really good too, about, she will do what she's needed to do in battle and she would go where she needed to be, but to be the leader to, rally the troops and send them to their death, like she couldn't do that. I like how she said she compared it to losing Steve Trevor. It'd be like doing that would be like losing Steve Trevor again, like numerous times over. So I did like that little motivation they had for Batman, recognizing her to being the more natural leader, and her reluctance to that I thought was really good too.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great scene, especially where they're in the hangar where like the team is just put together and it's going to unravel where they're and I think we were supposed to feel wrong about Cyborg and Flash. Like, we're going to make the two new guys dig up, where Barry was like, I could use super speed to do this and we'd be done a lot faster, but it feels morbid to do it. And Cyborg was like, this is what needs to be done. I was that kind of bothered me I think I'm more sided with Wonder Woman's line of like, we're talking about morality here. I was kind of hoping that the casket would be empty. That was probably the only issue that I had, where I was hoping Bruce would have and maybe should have said something like, I spoke to Martha, the body was never buried. It's been here the whole time. And, you know, he would have come out in a black suit or something like that. You didn't have to go through the whole grave robbing thing, or they get there and the grave's empty. That the Kryptonian technology, you know, went into fight or flight mode and would have taken Superman's body and done, you know, whatever with it. But with what we were left, it did put our heroes in a dilemma. And even to the fact where Bruce and Alfred are talking in the Batcave of saying that Clark was more human than he was. Mm-hmm. You know, he found time on this world to fall in love, get a job. You know, he's more human than I am. Bruce singularly has been fighting this war on crime and he's more alien than what Clark was, and knows where his shortcomings are and has to be the reluctant leader. And it's making him upset that he misjudged Superman for who he was. And once Diana had said, you know, she does better in battle, it's more weight on Bruce's shoulders. Like, we have to do this. And playing the whole D-bag Batman of going, I will rob every single grave in Gotham City if that's what it takes to make this work so we get Superman back. And that's typically what Batman would do. His opinions are not going to be the best and brightest opinions. It's going to be this is going to be ugly, but we're going to do it. He's not even going to apologize for it. He's just going to go.
Where he just goes, where Alfred like asks, "Oh, what if Superman, you know, wants to be at peace?" He goes, "He'll get over it."
Yeah, yeah. And there's another great line later that we'll talk about from Superman. But yeah, I thought their interactions before Superman comes back and knowing what they have to do. And even Aquaman, like right at the very end, he's like, I changed my mind. I think this is a horrible idea.
Yeah, so obviously it works. They bring Superman back, and we get this moment where, you know, he just flies out of the ship. He goes to the monument. I believe it's called the Monument of Heroes, if I remember from BVS. He goes there. It's like all shattered. His statue's broken down, and he's just staring, just floating in the sky. And then the Justice League, you know, comes going after him. And I was curious about this scene in the trailer where they're kind of Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Aquaman, and Flash. They're all lined up. It's in the daytime. I was always wondering, what's the context going to be in this movie? This like at the very end where they're like being awarded by the city, because almost a lot of Justice League stories, there's always like the president's giving a speech and they're just standing there like getting their accolades. I was like, is this going to be the end of the movie where they're being rewarded for saving the world? But nope, it was something totally different. I mean, I was not expecting a Superman Justice League fight in this movie, but boy, did I love it. This might be one of my favorite sequences of the film. And I can, you know, the whole thing about Superman, the whole, you know, the biggest complaint about this portrayal of Superman in the DC EU is, you know, being the more dark and somber Superman that's not, you know, very hopeful or inspiring. So I was kind of surprised they're, you know, showing this evil version of Superman, just upping that even more so, which was that's been such a debate amongst fans about this portrayal of the character. But I thought it made sense for the story they were trying to tell here. You know, it's natural for in these stories where characters are brought back from the dead, how they're not, you know, in their right state of mind. Heck, I mean, Batman's been through it tons of time with Ra's al Ghul being brought back in the Lazarus pit. How it would just messes you up for a little bit. So I thought it totally made sense for there, where, you know, he didn't exactly know what's going on, didn't remember certain characters, but yet once he saw Batman, that triggered, you know, probably the last traumatic experience he had while he was alive, and this is when he goes after him. So, but from a whole action standpoint, I thought it was amazing. It was just cool seeing Superman at full strength, not holding back, taking down the Justice League one by one. I thought was amazing. And boy, that moment where they're all ganging up on him, and then Flash is about to go from behind and sneak up on him, thinking, you know, using his speed and doesn't, you know, think Superman will notice him. Boy, when it's in slow motion and then Superman gives him that like evil eye look. Noticing that, I see you, and the look of shock and horror on Flash's face. It was priceless. That got that got one of the biggest laughs in the theater too. Just that look on Flash's face, like, oh crap, like I'm in for it now. So that whole action sequence I thought was really, really awesome. And just, like I said, seeing Superman's powers on full display here, just showing that they're no match for him. And then that moment where he sees Batman, I thought was great too. And to me, it makes sense. This is, I know, a moment that didn't work for a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but I've seen a few responses from the people on this sequence that they weren't the biggest fans of it. But I thought it made total sense as far as once Batman got into the picture and how Superman was just, ready to exact revenge on him, where, and that callback to the line where he goes, "Do you bleed?" I thought that it worked well in this sequence too, kind of Superman, throwing it back in Batman's face. But I knew it was coming where, Lois it was gonna be Lois or Martha that snaps him out of it, which, worked fine. But I'll get into this a little bit later, which is one of my, nitpicks about the movie. But that whole sequence of Superman making his, grand reappearance in this movie was totally unexpected. I gotta say, at the same time, I didn't know if, since I didn't expect it, I didn't know if this was the best way to do it. But once that action started kicking in, I just, kind of forgot about that. Just totally eating up, thinking this is awesome. And just, seeing Superman go toe to toe with the Justice League was so awesome for served as an action sequence, and just for as a DC fan seeing it on screen was just really, really cool. So overall, I love that whole sequence of Superman coming back for the first time.
This was one sequence. I shouldn't say sequence. This was one beat that I kind of knew was probably going to happen, and it was because of an interview with Danny Elfman. Once sections of the soundtrack were released, that he was saying he got a chance to use the John Williams theme, but it's in a dark, mysterious way. And anytime he gets a chance to play, with the John Williams theme is great. And the line he said in the interview was, we're not sure if Superman's good or bad when he comes back. And once I couldn't resist myself. I had to hear the audio, and hearing the John Williams theme all distorted and everything. I'm like, there's only one reason he's going to distort the John Williams theme and bring it in a lower key register. It almost kind of sounds like the Imperial March, like something bad is happening. So when he came back, I thought, okay, we're going to have a fight with the Justice League. So not that it was spoiled, but I kind of knew that going in, that we're not going to get the, "Hi guys, I'm back, let's go save the day." It's going to be a fight. Now, the type of fight that it was, I had no idea it was going to play out like this. And I thought, they're all going to be at Heroes Park receiving an award at the end of the movie. And even in those scenes, I thought, well, why aren't we seeing Batman in this? And do we know Batman's coming a little bit later? So I thought the scene played out very well. And like I said, the part with the Flash is really good. But the one that got me is where he's picking Batman up by the jaw, and you can kind of hear almost like his jaw breaking a little bit, where it's like, okay, he just headbutted Wonder Woman, which just about churned your stomach with how hard he must have hit her, where I'm like, everybody's down for the count. There is nobody else to save the day. And then, Lois comes out, and that's kind of what snaps Superman out of it, and he throws Batman away like a rag doll to the ground. It could have been 20 feet to the ground.
Yeah, you don't even see it too. Like, he just throws him, and they don't pan to Batman on the floor or anything till later. Like, you just don't even know what happened to him.
Right. Where he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm definitely bleeding here," or something like that. But hearing the BVS line of like, Lois, she's the key or whatever, I'm trying to remember. I've been asking a couple of different people if I'm remembering a Justice League Unlimited movie, or if it's I think it might be Batman Hush, where Batman takes Lois to the top of a building and drops her to snap Superman out of. I think it's Hush. Yeah. He's under control of Poison Ivy, and that's the thing. I was kind of waiting for a moment like that, that Batman's going to have to do something to Lois to snap him out of it, but just simply bringing her there, that the connection with Batman and Lois is the only things he's really remembering at that point. So he's just remembering love and hope from Lois, and then they take off. So I thought that sequence worked very well.
Yeah, totally. And this is kind of where, a little bit of an issue with, or I don't know if this is a product of the editing or whatnot, but here's my thing, because this overall Superman's Return I thought was great, but I thought it could have been, I don't know if I was expecting something different, like I said before, or just handled a little bit differently as far as when he does come back in the final fight, because I don't know, I know where in this plot and where it's coming from in the movie, where Lois, triggers the goodness that's back in him, but he was totally a different character pretty much than what we saw in Man of Steel and BVS in that final action sequence, which I love. That was like the Superman I think everybody was waiting to see after Man of Steel. The more, happy Superman, the cheerful Superman, the hopeful Superman, it just, his dialogue, that action sequence, which we'll get to after I share my little negative point of Superman and Lois back at the Kent farm. But the thing is, I just thought he kind of snapped out of it a little too quickly. Not in that moment where Lois comes, but once they back to the farm, he's pretty much back to old Clark Kent. We don't know how much time has passed in there, but I was kind of hoping or wanting to hear a little more of an explanation from Superman saying, being dead has given me a new perspective, or it changed me in some way. Just to give a little more context to how he's pretty much a totally different character, but it's just, Lois is there and she's solved everything. And maybe it was because then Martha comes to the Kent farm too a little later. So I'm assuming he probably had that conversation with them somewhere. We just didn't get to see it. But it would have been a little nice to get a little more context or an explanation as far as, him, being so different at the end of the movie. And then also him, I guess they don't really get too clear on the time frame, but him showing up as late as he did, because whether he was still talking to Lois and Martha, or maybe they had to talk him into going, but they never really established that. So it was like he wasn't there at the beginning of the final sequence because they knew they wanted to save it as, a big moment to where everything's looking hopeless, but then Superman comes in to save the day, which, again, going into it, I thought that final sequence is where Superman is going to see the Justice League for the first time. Like, that's the first time they're all going to see him, is in that final sequence. And just being in awe of like his presence, or at least like Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg who've never seen him before, and just seeing this beacon of hope that Superman is supposed to be. And we still kind of got that a little bit in the final sequence, but not onto the level that I was expecting of. So that was one of the little nitpicks I have about the film and just Superman's Return in general. Just how we didn't spend enough time of him coming to, I guess, terms with being back, and the explanation of just his whole total different personality, which you can piece together in your head and the reasons why, but it would have been nice to actually get a little of that in the actual film.
Yeah, I will agree with that. Which, does he go to the Batcave to pick up his costume? Did Bruce fix it?
Exactly,
did he know I can go to the Kryptonian ship and just get another one? Did he have one in the Kent farm somewhere? I didn't know if we were going to get some struggles during the fight with my fear was we're going to get a Superman back, but it's going to take half the fight for him to fully come into his own. His punches aren't landing right. And I was like, when he comes into this fight, he better have no problem taking out Steppenwolf. Which, I will probably get to that a little bit. So I'm glad that was there. But I was with you. And knowing that they cut a bunch out, I'm like, was that stuff that's filmed? If there's more exposition there on the farm between he and Lois, where I take that as a yes line was cut out of the film. So you could kind of tell there was probably more supposed to be there, even if it's just dialogue. We don't see much, but it's just between he and Lois. That maybe Lois is just reiterating what Batman has been trying to do with the Justice League this time that he's been gone, that's supposed to inspire him. So, that was kind of a nitpick. I shouldn't say nitpick. Yeah, a little nitpick. It didn't make me like the movie less, but I wanted a little bit more history there.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of torn on this because I think it would have been better if like Superman's first appearance is at that very end of the action sequence.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I love the sequence we just talked about with him taking on the Justice League. So it's like I can't really complain if I liked what they did have in the movie too. So it's a weird scenario for me. So I'm leaning more towards it being more of a positive thing, despite having that little nitpick there. So
yeah.
So I guess before moving on to like some of the action sequences, I guess the last character to talk about would be the villain of the movie, Steppenwolf. And boy, he is just getting destroyed by fans, critics everywhere about being like the worst comic book movie villain ever, CG being awful. So going into the movie, I wasn't expecting much from Steppenwolf. But you know what? Maybe because my expectations were just so low from what I was hearing, I thought he was fine. I thought he served his purpose in the movie really well. And actually, there was more to him than I thought, because I was very happy that we got a little bit of teases of Apocalypse and Darkseid. I mean, he said his name, which I was another geek out moment. I was glad to hear it. But the fact that, because I just thought, okay, the mother boxes are activated. He's going to come claim them, and then, get the world ready for Darkseid to, terraform it to a new apocalypse, have it ready for Darkseid. But there was a little more to it to that, where, he's trying to redeem himself to Darkseid. Like, he's in exile. So it makes sense where this is really important to him to, take over Earth, and that's his way back into Darkseid's good graces. So I did like that aspect of him having a little bit of motivation. Sure, there wasn't a lot of it, but I thought we just got enough of him to serve his purpose well in the movie. And that goes back to the whole thing we were talking about in the beginning about the story being simple. I think the same could be applied to the villain as well. This is all about the team of the Justice League. That's where the movie is going to focus on. So if you had to spend time establishing like a really, drawn out characterization of a villain in this movie too, that could, take more time from the league and have it focus on a villain who's really not that important to begin with when it's Steppenwolf, which now that I think about it, because I always thought it was a weird choice to have him be the first villain for a Justice League movie. But now that I've seen it, I think it was probably the smart choice, because when you bring Darkseid in, he has to be done right. As like, he can't get the Steppenwolf treatment here. He has to be handled as like a really great villain. And it's a good thing they saved him for hopefully movies down the line where you got the team established, but now you can, focus the attention that Darkseid would need and deserves for him to be the main villain of a movie. So just Steppenwolf, I thought, served his role fine in this movie. And I got to say, is the CG great? No, but it didn't really take me out when I was watching it. I never had the feeling where I was going, oh man, this scene is ruined because the CGI is so awful. It was like, I didn't get that feeling. There's certain shots, weren't as good as others, but at the same time, I never got taken out of the film while I was watching it. So Steppenwolf, it's kind of a take it or leave. It's not like a big negative on the film for me. He's there. He serves his purpose. And, I got more out of him than I thought with his history with Darkseid and his Apocalypse and Apocalypse and his motivations for doing all this. So I thought he was fine.
Oh, I did too. And I think, I had heard that coming into the film too, that, it's poor CGI and typical gray monster, which I would like. That's one thing I do like to have. I think the bad guys can have color. I don't think all the Decepticons need to be gray, and I don't think every bad person needs to be just monotone color. But that being said, my expectations were a little low on Steppenwolf, and I'm like, I thought he was very well. I looked very well. Like you said, there's a couple little spots here and there. I had more of a problem with Superman's lip than I did.
You see, I think even that, I didn't notice it when I was watching. I got to be honest. Maybe I will when I see it a second time, but I was expecting that to be something else that's going to distract me. But maybe it's a testament to the movie and how much I was engrossed and engaged into it that I didn't even notice anything with Superman and his mustache. So maybe I will on future viewings, but first time I saw it, I was just eating up everything I was seeing. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, had this come out in 1989, there would have been no internet. I would have had no idea that they had to go back in and he had a mustache. Not to go back to Superman, but I think sometimes we know way too much going into a movie, so we're looking for that thing that they told, well, hopefully people won't notice it. Mm-hmm. If you don't tell me to look for it, I'm probably not going to look for it. I may say, it looked a little funny, but maybe the audio was out of sync or something. So, but it's back to Steppenwolf. I found him very enjoyable, and he served the purpose. To me, I took it like Darkseid says, go to Earth, There's no real problems there. I don't need to be there. We can conquer this planet. We can get the mother boxes back. Problem solved. And that was his job, to go take over the world, hand it over to Darkseid, day done for Apocalypse and the New Gods. So I didn't need this huge convoluted story for Steppenwolf. And I thought when he was on screen, at no point was I just going, ew, I don't know. The CG's horrible. I can't get into the character, and the dialogue was really good for him. Even things where people are like, I have families. And his Steppenwolf's like, why do people keep saying that? Which was a little laugh, but it's like, it's not important to him. I need the mother boxes. I'll just keep snapping everybody's neck. And the funny thing is, if you tell me I won't kill you, but I'm going to end up killing you anyway, because we're going to terraform this whole planet into Apocalypse and you're going to be all dead or be all parademons working for us anyway. So yeah, I thought Steppenwolf was serviceable as a villain, and for me, I wasn't going there. It's not like I'm going into Star Wars really wanting a lot of Darth Vader. I'm going into Justice. Well, no, I take that back. It's not like I'm going into Star Wars. I really am going into Star Wars for Darth Vader. That's not why I'm going into Justice League.
You. Okay.
Yeah, I said that backwards. I'm going into Justice League for the heroes, as opposite for Star Wars. I'm going in for all the villains and heroes and everything in general. Sometimes you go into Star Wars like Rogue One. I can't wait to see Darth Vader whip some butt, Yeah. But that was not the point of Justice League for this villain. The villain was, I'm going to come in, I'm going to destroy the world. Who's going to stop me? It's going to be these 6 individuals that are going to stop, and that's where our story rests. So I had no problem with Steppenwolf at all.
Yep, I'm with you. And kind of using Steppenwolf to, transition into talking about the action sequences. One of my favorites was Wonder Woman's telling Bruce the history of Steppenwolf and his invasion of Earth for the first time. Oh man, was that amazing. For a few reasons. Well, one in particular, but I just love the history it laid out, for the DC universe in a way. We knew about this going in because we heard reports, or at least I did, from set reports, and they even showed a little bit of the trailers, how the history of the mother boxes on Earth, how the Atlanteans had one, the Amazons had one, and mankind had one. But the context of how they got them and how there was a big war for them, wasn't something that I knew about going in, except for a few shots of the trailers and how Steppenwolf was first involved with that. And it had a Lord of the Rings feel to it. The prologue for that one with Sauron and the union of men and elves to take him on. It was kind of had that feel with the Atlanteans, the Amazons, and humans going forth. So that was a really cool, epic battle sequence. But, oh man, the line in the trailer got me excited for the possibilities of what Steppenwolf says, no Kryptonians, no lanterns. And that was cut. Cut from the movie, but we got something even better. We saw a lantern. Oh my goodness, that was awesome. I was totally not expecting that, but once we saw him flying and we got, the construct. It was a quick shot, but we saw one construct, and it was amazing. And just we saw him get killed, but that moment where you just see the ring fly off, and like Steppenwolf turns his head and looks at it as it flies off to try to find another suitable person to wield it. It was just my biggest geek out moment of the movie was right there. It was just awesome. They didn't have to do that, but it was just a nice nod at the history that the what's there in the DC universe, and being it's like so far back in time too, just how established it is. That was awesome because, like I said, this is a small thing. You saw one construct, you saw the ring leave him, but that was something we didn't see in the Green Lantern movie. It was like once the Green Lantern dies, the ring goes off and it just flies off by itself. But it's such a big part of the Green Lantern mythos that it was just kind of cool to see that one little thing played out in the movie. And again, just the history of the DC universe being established here was so good. And there was another moment too where me and my brother were trying to figure out, we saw this big human guy with lightning bolts, like he was throwing lightning bolts at his enemies, and I was thinking, oh, is that Zeus? But then my brother's like goes, hey, maybe that's like the first Shazam, because we know the Shazam's movie coming. Maybe that was, the very first one. So just these little things that I loved how they're just showing the history of DC in this one sequence. It was a great action sequence just by itself, but having those little nods and Easter eggs in there just blew me away. It was so, so cool. I think every DC fan had to have a big geek out moment in that one.
If we couldn't get Unite the Seven in this movie to know, I think going into it, I was almost 100%. We're not going to see Green Lantern. I was even going, is it going to be Hal Jordan? Is it going to be John Stewart? I don't care if it's Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, like somebody, I knew green. Going in. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? We're not going to get it. There's people thinking, when Alfred says, he knew you were going to come. People were like, it's got to be a Green Lantern. I'm like, nah. As much as the toys are coming out, they're not announcing a Green Lantern. There's not a mystery figure out there. So I was just like, all right, we've got 6 members of the Justice League. I'm fine. I'm cool with that. But when that scene showed and we see the construct get wielded around and the ring flies off, that blew me out of the seat. I was like, holy crap, I cannot believe I just saw that. So that was great. So I go, well, I didn't get a Green Lantern in the movie, but I kind of did. So that I thought that was just great. And then I was of two minds too. I was probably thinking that was probably Zeus. Somebody said maybe it was Hercules or something like that, with being with the Amazon and Atlanteans fighting. But it'd be nice to think maybe that was the first Shazam there. But again, just the nods and little Easter eggs sprinkled out through the whole movie just showed the testament of like what a rich and vast DC universe this is going to be. So that whole history lesson I thought was just absolutely marvelous.
Yeah, it was arguably it might be or definitely one of my favorite sequences of the movie. It was so cool. Oh yeah. I even loved too Steppenwolf's dialogue when he was talking to, I think he was talking to Wonder Woman, how he's talking about, like we're one of the old gods. Well, referencing the old gods and then establishing the new gods that we know about too. Again, just laying down or planting the seeds for the bigger DC universe. I thought was really, really cool. So, yeah, that action sequence was one of my favorites. But the other big one too was the fight in the underground, like the sewers of Gotham or under the harbor, was like the first big Justice League fight. We touched on a little bit with Flash, but how he was nervous, but the team just getting ready for that first big fight. And I thought it was really cool, setting the stage up for the bigger one to come later. But each of them, playing their role here too. Like I said, Flash getting the hostages out, Cyborg, rescuing his dad first and foremost, and then Wonder Woman having the hand-to-hand fight with Steppenwolf, which was really cool. I just love it when there's these one-on-one fights and there's these wide shots of just showing them going at it, and the sequence had that between Wonder Woman and Steppenwolf, and then Batman taking on parademons but having a hard time with it. It was they're just being strong, a bunch of strong aliens going after him, and there's only so much he can do. But once he gets into that Nightcrawler and just starts wreaking havoc on them, was cool. So it was a fun action sequence, and then the moment too where Wonder Woman's falling out to get that sword, and Flash goes into action to help her out. Again, being that support character amongst the fight, just either helping civilians or helping the other team out, members of the team out in different ways, and just gives that little tap on the sword to have her reclaim it was cool. And then Aquaman comes in with his big entrance, stopping the water from flooding the underground there. So it was just a fun action sequence that was a good way to show the League fighting together for the first time.
That whole tunnel sequence, like you said, I thought was really cool. And I really found the parademons really kind of cool, too. Yeah. They were, some people were like, oh, they're just a bunch of flying gnats. I'm like, well, that's what the parademons are. And I was kind of wanting to see more of them and see Batman going up against. And it was kind of cool as a Batman fan to see Batman struggle a little bit. As Batman has a contingency plan for everything, and he knows, okay, I can fight hand to hand so well, but I've got this Nightcrawler thing. So Batman knows what he needs to be able to do to help the League out and can be more of a tactical person. I think that sequence worked really well. But the Flash coming into, we've touched on, like I said, a couple times of, I just run really fast and push people. And Bruce telling him, get one, save one, and you'll know what to do after that. And after he saves the first person, he knows, okay, I have my purpose. I know what I'm doing here. I thought that was really cool. And like you said, the sequence with the sword where he just pushes it slightly right back to her, and just everybody interacting with one another, I thought was really pretty cool. And again, with the trailers, seeing the sequence with Cyborg coming into the Nightcrawler was right side up in the trailer, but finding out he's actually upside down and having to scale back up the wall and come back down, I thought was really pretty cool. And Alfred being like, "I'm sorry, do I know you?" which was really pretty cool. And it's getting to see how he connects and interacts with Batman's tech and everything, I thought was really pretty cool. So that sequence was. And I was glad that it wasn't like typical superhero movies where we spend a lot of time with the heroes out of costume. They were all their heroes for large chunks of the movie, but also their interaction, getting to see Batman without his cowl, talking to different members of the League. But that whole sequence was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up, because a lot of the Marvel movies do that, where either Tony Stark's not in his Iron Man suit, but he's still in some action sequences, or Captain America doesn't have his helmet on or is in civilian clothes. So I get where you're coming from there. And this had a nice balance of, when they're needed to be in their costumes, they were in their costumes. There weren't any reasons where, they had to fight without them. So, but at the same time, there was plenty of moments where they were just in like their civilian clothes talking with each other. So it's a good balance with that too. But so that leads to the big final moment, climactic battle of the movie, where the League has to go into, I believe it was like it's like a town in Russia, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it? Okay,
yeah.
So that's where Steppenwolf, his base operation was at, and there's a small town that's shielded, and is the start of the terraforming of Earth into Apocalypse, and Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman are there to stop it. And this sequence, it was really cool. But I got to say, this is one of my little disappointments of the film. I did feel they showed a lot of the stuff, especially in the beginning of the sequence of, Bruce and the Batmobile and the different members outside of Steppenwolf's base taking on parademons. I thought they showed a little too much in the trailers and some of the commercials, even though I tried to stay away from the TV spots, like at the beginning of the Smug, because I was afraid of that happening. A lot of the cool sequences that were shown in the movie were shown in trailers and TV spots, but there were still plenty of great moments in there as well. I just liked how, Batman, his focus is just to, distract Steppenwolf's parademons, draw them all out for the rest of the League can get into the base and to stop the mother boxes. But yet he went into that plan knowing that he probably wasn't going to survive, and he just gave the team orders, just whatever you do, just don't come after me, just keep going straight on to those mother boxes and to disable them, and knowing that he probably was going to die. But I loved how Wonder Woman kind of, did what Batman told her to do, lead, and she gave the rest of the team orders to go and help Batman. And like they even said, I think it was Cyborg who said, like, Wonder Woman didn't give us a choice to help you, so like we had to do it. So now, again, just another great dynamic between the team members, mixing it into with some cool action sequences. So it was a great sequence, a lot of cool stuff between the characters that had their own, cool moments. I just wish it was a little longer. And this is, I guess, fanboy nitpicking here, because I just thought for an end climactic battle sequence for a first Justice League movie, it felt a little on the short side to me. Again, I'm comparing it to the Avengers because, it's the biggest superhero team-up movie we have out there with the Justice League. So kind of, have to make comparisons in certain areas. But that final action sequence in the first movie, I thought was perfect. The right amount of length, because let's be honest, that's a big reason why we're excited for these team-up movies with these iconic heroes. You want to see them in action sequences and their powers on display. And I thought the end sequence for the Avengers was the perfect amount of time that, didn't drag on too long, it wasn't too short, and each character got their due. And while that was the same with Justice League, where each character had their really cool moment, I just felt the entire sequence as a whole wasn't as epic as it could have been, or maybe should have been for a first Justice League movie. So that was my one complaint about it, but there's a lot of cool stuff in there that still made it for a really cool action sequence to close out the movie.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I wanted the the large scale fight. Now that Superman has entered the fight and is kicking butt with the rest of the Justice League, I was really wanting to spend some quality time with there. And again, with only one viewing, I don't know, going back to it if I'll feel a little differently, because as you're seeing it for the first time, you're just trying to look everywhere on the screen. I felt like everything was going by so quick. And I think because I knew, seeing some of the trailers, which we complained a lot with BVS, that we saw a ton of stuff in the trailers. And I thought Justice League did very well with the trailers of, like we were saying, misdirecting us. But once we saw Batman, like, we knew the tactical suit was probably going to be the last thing he was going to wear. So once he's in the tactical suit, you're already in the mindset of like, okay, we're coming in to the end of the movie, Superman's back, and this is where we're going to go. That I was just trying to soak it all in, but I could have done with another 5 to 10 minutes easily in that section and put some of our heroes in a little bit more peril, as it were, just trying to fight off Steppenwolf and the amount of parademons. But something I thought was very cool was Flash was still going out and saving people. The family being trapped in that house kind of, I felt like every time we went back there, I was like, that was taking us away from something else. But we got to see the heroes saving people. We get to see Flash take that family out, and then Superman has to one up.
That was awesome.
One up, Barry's like, "Oh, great! I saved this whole family." And here comes Superman carrying an entire building. That got a really huge chuckle. And it would have been really cool to get a close up of Superman's face with him winking at Barry, like, "Oh, you just saved 6. I saved 600." Or whatever it was, but. Typical Superman being Superman was so cool. And just seeing each of the heroes, I felt like I was reading a comic book come to life, and just seeing all of them work together independently and working together in tandems or in trios, trading licks. When one falls down, the next one hops right back in. Aquaman and Wonder Woman really taking on the brunt of Steppenwolf for a while there, as Superman was fighting back and forth. And once Superman came in, you could see the team was like, okay, Superman's here, we can go off and kind of ward off all the parademons. And while Cyborg was kind of trying to still stay attached and detaching the mother boxes. So I wanted more of that. So that's another little nitpick I had. I could have just spent more time there, but man, what we got, I really enjoyed.
Totally. Yeah. And just going back to Superman again, his appearance in this final sequence was like magical in a way. It was just so cool to see this version of Superman interacting with all these heroes. It was everything I was hoping it would be and more. I mean, just appearing right away in front of Steppenwolf and just Steppenwolf being no match for Superman, like you said earlier, how it should be. It was just amazing to see. And just Superman, again, his powers on display here. And then also recognizing civilians needed help too. Batman sent Flash out to help the civilians he can, but Superman knows there's a lot more that need help in that regard too. So he goes off to help those in need as well. And that was just great. I think a great testament to this sequence and Henry Cavill's performance here in this moment as Superman is just Superman is just meeting these characters technically for the first time right here, because he wasn't in the right state of mind when they brought him back, like we talked about before, but they immediately had chemistry together with each person he interacted with. Flash, Cyborg, not too much with Aquaman, and of course he already had established himself with Wonder Woman, Batman, and BVS, but with like Flash and Cyborg, they immediately hit it off where this is like the Justice League interaction we would expect them to have, but it's instant. That moment where he goes up to Flash as Flash is saving or trying to save people, he just turns to him and goes, slowpoke. It was just perfect. It's like, that's how Superman would be in this instance. And then his banter with Cyborg when they're trying to stop the mother boxes, and Cyborg's asking him if like he can handle it, and he's all, yeah. But then at the end, after the explosion, he just lying there like, I take it back. Like, I wish I was still dead or something like that.
Yeah, that lead in going into it, I thought was so cool. Of, you think we can do this? You're like going to have a split second to do it. And he's like, well, I just came back, to life. I don't want to die again.
That's
and
right.
then that is my favorite Superman moment, and getting to hear Superman laugh on the ground with Cyborg, I thought that was magical. That brought a huge smile to my face, and that's where I was like, that's the Superman we've been waiting for. A Superman that is having fun being Superman, that is saving the day and bringing that hope into the DC universe. I thought it was just a great scene that played out, that he instantly recognized how powerful Cyborg is, and it wasn't like, okay, kid, get out of the way, here's Superman to save the day. He knew that Cyborg was telling Superman the right things to do. He didn't question it. He just said, okay, what do I need to do? And did it. And then, like you said, when he's on the ground going, I take it back, I wish I was dead.
Yeah, that whole, once Superman shows up and he's like doing all the stuff we just talked about, that's the moment where I said, like, this is a DC fan's dreams come true. Seeing all this stuff on the big screen for the first time with these iconic characters we loved for our whole lives, it's what made it special. And even that, after the fight was over, that end shot with all of them lined up, just seeing them all together in that pose, it was just so cool. And even, like we said, as much as Batman vs. Superman gets flack from certain people, and how it wasn't the team up / first appearance between both characters we were expecting, I felt that Batman and Superman, this again in this short amount of time in Justice League, they had that classic Superman Batman back and forth banter where they have that mutual respect for each other, but yet they take jabs at one another where their ideologies are so different. They're of course not going to get along all the time, but they have that mutual respect, and it was on display even for the briefest of moments that they were together in this film. It was just so good, and cannot help yourself but get excited for the future of the DC movies moving forward, because the way it ended too, I loved it with Lois's monologue where she goes back into writing a story that she's used to. As she mentioned, she kind of has taken a step back and is doing very basic stories, but now she's going back into full-blown journalism now that Clark is back. But I just love the monologue that she have where after the darkness there's light, and I don't remember exactly what she says, but it just summed up the movie, and I think just the DC movie universe as a whole perfectly in this one moment, how it brings out the hope and the light and heroes being a part of the world now. And just as that monologue, as she's saying that, it's going over like these great scenes with each member of the Justice League kind of doing their own thing now, but having the sense of like a newfound sense of hope and just in their lives and what they're going to do with it now, with, like you said earlier, Flash having the job, showing it to his dad, Aquaman off doing his own thing, Batman looking out in the night sky, the bat signal, and then Cyborg reuniting with his dad, and this all that stuff like that ending culminating into the classic Superman images we've seen in movies, comics, TV shows. Clark Kent about to look like he's about to go into the Daily Planet, but then he goes off in the classic Superman pose where he just rips up the shirt and you see the Superman logo and just flies up into the sky. I thought that was a great end to the film, and again tying it back into the very beginning of it with the phone footage of the kids talking to him. It was just a great way to end this movie, just get you so excited for the future of DC with these characters. It was just the perfect way to end it, I thought.
Oh yeah, definitely. Just the little vignettes, and something I thought was cool that Cyborg has changed his costume, his body. He's got the Cyborg symbol on it now. Geeking out as a Bat fan, what I thought would have been such a cool thing to happen, and being a Robin fan, would have been if on the rooftop with Batman, when the Batwing was showing up, is if a Robin would have swung in beside him, like you don't know how much time's going by, that Batman had moved on. So that was the one thing as a Robin fan, when I saw the Batwing and knew where that sequence was, I'm like, oh, I would have lost my mind if Robin would have swung into view, but it didn't. So maybe that'll happen later. But Wonder Woman taking time to talk to kids.
That's right.
Also, which kind of paralleled to the beginning of the movie, and the crooks are tied up with the lasso of truth, and they're just saying, "Oh yeah, Bob did this robbery, and oh yeah, this happened over here," and just kind of spilling it all for the cops. I thought was pretty cool. So it was just a very cool sequence to end, and then just the typical Clark Kent turning into Superman, which a friend of mine has been wanting to see the shirt rip in these movies for such a long time. So he's like, I just want that. He's like, I want the movie to end with Clark Kent running towards screen and just turning into Superman. So that was a great way to end the movie, and was completely satisfied. And all I had to do was just sit there and go, okay, we get 2 end credit scenes, and we'll see what they are. But wow, you can't top the way this movie ended.
Nope. And another thing too, which I thought was awesome, we got Bruce and Diana walking into the burnt down Wayne Manor, but they're going to bring it back up to pretty much make it the Hall of Justice. I mean, he's talking about we get a round table there, and like with 6 seats. But I love Wonder Woman's line just saying, "But with room for more," because we know there has to be more. That was just great, and just a setup for where it's going to lead things to come. So, yeah, it was a great way to end the movie. And boy, at the same time, I'm a little depressed or nervous because not to end it on a down note, but it sucks that it's not doing the numbers that it needs to be doing, to warrant a sequel for this. And that's making me a little nervous and upset in a way, because things are laid out so perfectly now for this DC movie universe that it would be such a shame if it doesn't continue now. So go see it, everybody. Don't let those negative reviews out there stop you from at least checking it out, because you know what? I don't say this a lot, but because sometimes it doesn't always hold true. But in the case of like Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad, while I like and enjoy those movies, I understand where those can have, some of the negative reviews they got. With this one, I don't. I'm sorry. It does not deserve some of the thrashing it's getting from critics out there. This is just, it's not it's not, like I said, not going to be a superhero movie that has a deep story that, other ones have, but it's just a great superhero movie that unites these iconic characters in such a cool way, where you're going to have an entertaining time at the movie theaters for, even if you're not a hardcore DC fan. I think you're just going to be entertained by this movie. But for us comic book fans and DC fans, it's the best of both worlds, because we're seeing these iconic characters be brought to life on screen for the first time together in such a great way. And we're being entertained with some, great character moments, great action sequences, and just tons of Easter eggs for us fans. So, yeah, I'm not understanding the hate this movie's getting right now from critics. So, if that's turning anyone off, don't let it. Just go see it and support it, because I think it really deserves to, have some financial success like the other movies had, and just hopefully continue forward with this, where things left off in this movie, because the future is really, really bright now.
Yeah, that's been the kind of the downer to this time of going. I kind of feel it's like superhero movies of old, like the critics never really jumped on board. They were always very dismissive of the superhero genre for a long time. Even movies like Star Wars and James Bond, the critics always just kind of were like, it's just flash in the pan. There's no real substance here. And like you said, with Batman versus Superman and Suicide Squad, as much as I like those and love those movies, I always could pull myself back and go, okay, I could understand why person X, Y, and Z, it didn't connect with you. This is one where I never like to think this way, but I'm going, there is hate here for the DC universe just simply because. And a lot of people that I've just talked to online and other friends I've had through Facebook and different things, even while we're talking here, I've been like scrolling through my phone. I'm getting private messages like, have you seen Justice League? Oh my gosh, this is great. And it's like in the upwards of 10 to 15 messages I've got just from recording this podcast where I'm like, that's 15 separate people sending messages wanting to know what I thought about it. And this was the greatest DC movie they've seen in forever, that I'm like, are the critics just looking like, we know how the sausage was made and this thing was hobbled together, so that means it's got to be a poor movie? It's like, you've got to take some of that critical crap off and just sit back and like, this is 75 years in the making. Of the closest thing we had was Justice League Unlimited cartoon series or the Super Friends. Typically, it's been a Batman universe with a little bit of Superman sprinkled in and a Green Lantern movie. That's been it for us DC fans. So anybody that's been a DC fan, again, like you said, I don't say this very much, but I for this movie, I cannot understand the hate that it is getting. And I feel like it's just simply for the hate. I'm like, if this sounds bad, like if you don't like this movie, there's something wrong with you. I'm like, I don't get how you can't find some enjoyment out of this and go, it's not perfect, but it's still a really, really solid, good film. That just blows my mind.
Yep. And again, yeah, like you said, it's not a movie without flaws, of course. And there could be some big ones in there that might turn some fans off and not enjoy it as much as we did, which is totally cool. But just the, flat out hate for it, it's almost like not giving it a chance, so to speak, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, which was what I'm really baffled by. So, I don't know, hopefully it has some, because right now the opening weekend numbers are looking like barely 100, maybe even a little below that, which is not what Warner Brothers wants for a big team up movie like this with their big characters. So
it's like 978, 989, something like that. It's just shy of 100.
So hopefully, word of mouth was spread, because like you, I'm just seeing nothing but positive reactions just from like on social media and from the general audience and stuff. So hopefully it will have some legs and last pretty long in the theater, at least while it can, before Star Wars comes out, because once that comes, all bets are off as far as it continuing on.
Right. I'm hoping it has a good run right up until Star Wars, and if it takes a massive nosedive after Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, cool. I totally understand and expect any movie to be like that.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but I'm hoping for the best. But before we fully wrap up our discussion on Justice League, we got to talk about the 2 end credit scenes. And sad to say, I was spoiled on one of them before I saw it, when I was trying so hard to avoid it. But some people on Twitter just can't keep their mouths shut, and it's just awful. So the first one, so I was going in knowing one and not knowing one of the other. So I was anxious to see what the other one I didn't know about was going to be. And that ended up being the first, mid-credit scene, which was totally unexpected, but pretty awesome still, with, again, the classic Flash Superman race. And we kind of got even a little hint of it when, they were side by side, like I was talking about, trying to save the civilians. So it's kind of nice to kind of have both characters realize that, hey, we should see who's the fastest. And it's such an iconic DC moment that happens throughout the comics and, the animated series episode of Superman about the race that they had. So it was nice to get that little nod there. And again, the chemistry between the team and right here, Superman and the Flash, just works so well. It's exactly what you would expect for them to, the way they talk to each other. It just was so perfect. So it was just a nice, nothing that's universe building, but just a nice extra moment between those two characters. It was a lot of fun, that moment.
That was great. I was kind of half sort of spoiled on a moment, which was the latter part, but this came as a complete surprise and shock. And for me, that for an after credit scene, that I would hope DC does this and do it differently than what Marvel does, that it doesn't tie into anything. It doesn't tie in setting up the next movie. It's just a little vignette of like, we're going to take this classic comic book scene, this comic book issue that you've read, and we're going to give you a minute of just this pure DC joy of these two characters. And in this case, it's Superman and the Flash racing. And after it was over, I instantly got out of the theater and got on my phone and had to show my wife the image of them running. And she's like, oh, okay. She's like, I understand that. She's like, why are they racing? And I was just like, oh, this is DC lore at its absolute finest. So this is what I would like to see DC do if they continue to keep doing end credit scenes, because I think we get kind of used to that now. Is just give us a nugget of something like this, that you're not setting up the next movie. It's just, here's something really cool. So I thought that was really cool. It brought a huge smile to my face.
Totally agree. But the final end credit scene, that was the big one. And unfortunately, this is what I was spoiled on. I was just spoiled on who was in it, knowing it was Lex and Deathstroke. I was like, why? Just like a few more days. You could have just keep it to yourselves. But anyway, even though I knew it going in, man, it was still a really, really cool sequence. And just Deathstroke looked awesome. Just flat out awesome. Costume. I always have trouble pronouncing his last name, but Joe Magniello, I think.
Manganiello?
Yeah, so sorry, Joe, if you're listening. But but he looked great just as Slade Wilson when he took his helmet off, the patch, the full-on gray hair, which was kind of cool to see because as much as I love Manu Bennett's portrayal as Deathstroke on Arrow, which is, right now the, definitive Arrow or Deathstroke portrayal right now, we'll see what this movie version does, but he looked just straight out of the comic book here. Joe Manganiello did. Full-on gray hair, the patch. It was perfect. So,
see, and I had no idea. I thought, like, once he got on the boat, I thought, all right, cool. There was no part of me that thought, oh, he's going to take off his helmet and talk to Lex. But when he did, I was like, oh my gosh,
so good. And then, Lex just telling him, that's what I liked about the scene, which made it really cool, even though I knew he was going to be in it. The context of why they were talking was amazing. Lex's line is about how, like the god has risen back up and like they're forming their own group. Well, maybe we should form a league of our own. It's like, oh boy, they're going to go there. They're going to go, in Justice League, Secret Society, whatever they call themselves, but a group of iconic DC villains fighting the iconic DC heroes of the Justice League. Oh man, just the thought of that just gives me goosebumps with excitement because it serves two things. One, it's going to be awesome if they go that story route for a sequel. It seems like a natural progression that they could go to. But the other thing that makes it so cool is that we haven't seen that before in a superhero movie. Like we haven't seen full on like a team of heroes versus a team of villains. Like again, going back to an Avengers comparison, they haven't had that yet where they're fighting a group of supervillains. It's just one main villain with, a legion of like robots or aliens that just are just cannon fodder for the heroes to fight, which this was in this first Justice League movie. But the idea of heroes versus villains, like, oh man, just seeing like the idea of Superman fighting Lex in his, exosuit, Green Lantern fighting Sinestro Corps if they go that route, Wonder Woman fighting Cheetah, Aquaman fighting Black Manta, Flash versus Reverse Flash, or other maybe Grodd if they go that way. Just so DC has such a rich history of villains they can use from to go with their heroes, and it's just going to be mind blowing to see that on screen if they go that route. And again, which makes me a little nervous about the possibility of not getting a sequel if this movie doesn't do good, because I want that to happen so bad now because the potential of some truly amazing, great comic book movie moments, or just a new comic book movie as a whole of what Justice League 2 can possibly be. It has the potential to be something really special. So, man, did it do its job of getting me super, super excited for, a potential future Justice League movie. It was so cool.
Oh, yeah. Now, I was spoiled in the fact that a YouTuber had posted you get a little thumbnail of what their video is, and in the corner was a picture of Lex Luthor from a comic book. I don't know which one it was, and it said deleted scenes, the end credit scenes explained. And this was 2 days before the film opened. And I'm like, why? Why are you posting this here right now before the general public gets a chance to see it on Thursday night for the first time? So I was like, well, great. It's the Lex Luthor scene that we were told was Jesse Eisenberg was cut out of the role along with Iris West. So I was like, all right, well, at least we get to see Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor and what the context of that scene was. And knowing that there were two scenes or two end credit scenes, what I thought was, oh, they've been talking and announcing of a Deathstroke movie. This would be a great time to see that footage that Ben Affleck had put up of Deathstroke. So I thought, okay, that's probably our two scenes. We'll get the context of the Deathstroke scene, and then it'll be the Lex Luthor scene. So once the next scene showed up, I thought, oh, this has got to be Lex. And seeing, him in the cell turn on, I'm like, well, that's not Lex. And then seeing the boat, I started going, am I seeing like pigtails? And later my wife, I'm like, holy crap, it's Deathstroke. He's in the same scene. So at least I had that, surprise there that those two characters were on the same scene together. I'm like, of course you would use Deathstroke to get Lex out of prison. So I was on a complete high, even higher than I was at the end of the film, going, oh my gosh, this would be great for Justice League 2. You do the Justice League versus the Injustice League, and then for Justice League 3, you say, hey, remember Darkseid? Boom. Now you have everybody fighting Darkseid. So again, like we've been saying, I hope this movie does well, or Warner Brothers listens enough to go, the critical reaction was not what we wanted, but the fans have been enamoring for this. We're going to continue doing it for the fans. So I hope, man, I'm hoping beyond hope that we get more.
Totally, yeah. It would just be such a shame if this is it and all this cool potential stuff that they teased and planted the seeds for, not only this end credit scene, but just the movie itself would just be such a shame. So you're right. Here's hoping that, this isn't the end of it, because so much cool stuff could potentially be down the horizon, and I just hope we get to see it. So here's hoping. But I guess before we wrap it up, I just want to read off a few responses from our Twitter account about those who saw Justice League, put the word out to let us know what some of our listeners think about it. So wanted to share those. First off, we got a reply from Virginia Blues at VA_Blues, says, liked it. Felt like an episode of Justice League animated series in a lot of ways. And then Jim Bob Squarepants, he says, it was good. I liked it, and was entertained throughout. And then Stephen Martin Jr. Says, loved it. Hate the negativity surrounding it. Not a single critic has any merit behind their negativity. So I'm, again, just glad to see that on social media, whether it's, the responses we got here from the Bat Fans account and just my personal Twitter account, just seeing the fan responses have been really, really good. So, which is, again, surprising me that the numbers are tracking so low for this movie yet. So I really hope the positive word of mouth gets spread out, because I'm really glad to hear that the people I've seen are really, really enjoying it. It's going from like really liking it to love it. And of course, there's going to be some who don't and who don't like it or hate it. That's fine. But the positivity I'm seeing for it totally outweighs the negativity I'm seeing it for it amongst just people on social media, which is really cool to see. So yeah, just goes into hopefully the word of mouth spreads for it. So thank you guys for responding to the tweet. Always love hearing your responses and what you think about whenever we get these big DC movies or events that happen. So keep them coming. If after you hear this episode and want to share more thoughts about the movie, either tweet them over to us at our Twitter account at BatFansPodcast, or as you can always email us at batfanswithoutpants@gmail.com to share your thoughts. So hopefully we'll hear from you. But with that, I guess we'll just go ahead and kind of summarize our final thoughts on the movie and I guess give it a score. And as always, we have to have a rating scale, a unique one. So I'm going to make the scale time or smiles we've had on our face while watching Justice League. So Rob, I'll go to start with you. Final thoughts, and what score would you give it out of 5?
Oh, wow. The final thoughts of this is everything I kind of hope for. As much as, you could kind of hope for a movie seeing all your characters together. I don't know if I could have sat and told you what story I exactly wanted to see, but I wanted to see all of my favorite DC heroes just interact with one another, come in, save the day, and leave the theater smiling and be satisfied that I got to see a great movie. I had a good time with it, and that the audience was responding very well, that I wasn't the only one laughing, and I didn't hear any boos and snickers, and it was just a really an enjoyable experience, and one that I wished I got to have with Batman versus Superman, with all the negativity that came out with that. But this one was very positive, just from the fans and people saying, you don't listen to the critics, just go and enjoy it. And I couldn't be happier with what we got. And the list of DC characters were all there, save for, a certain green one. But I'm hoping that this just continues on, that we'll get a completed Justice League, and hearing lines of with room for more, that Wayne Manor is going to be turned into the new Hall of Justice, just makes me happy, and the possibilities and dreaming that could come out of this. So I was completely happy with this movie, and my smile just keeps getting more and more as we're talking about this movie. So 5 smiles for this film. I know some people go 5. You must think it's perfect. Yeah, there were little hiccups here and there, but the feelings that I have towards this film and what we had outweigh any of the little or some of the issues that I had with some CG and just little things here or there. But I really, really enjoy this. And I was thinking about, how I would, rank these films. I want to see it again, but this is in the top 3. Is it like, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Man of Steel, BVS, like where, like it's right in there. It's probably resting right now at the top 2, and I really want to kick it into the top 1. But I want a few more viewings under my belt. But it's 5s for me. It's just the joy factor coming out of the theater is what makes this so solid and strong for me.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to be in agreement with you there. Just the feeling that I had watching it and how it continued after the movie was over was just the buzz I had again. It's just so high, and exactly what I was hoping for with a Justice League movie. And even though, like we said, it wasn't quite the perfect Justice League movie, not even from a filmmaking standpoint, but just even when you think about a Justice League movie, certain things that would have like a full roster of team members, like Superman being a big like fixture of the Justice League movie. Because again, when you think of a Justice League movie, you think Superman would be a big part, which he was in this, but just mainly at the end. While I thought it worked, it's still something where I think a perfect Justice League movie would have the full team with Superman there from the get go with certain other characters like Green Lantern. So that's not quite where it's not at the perfect Justice League movie level yet, but it's pretty darn close. It was just a fun ride from start to end, and then it was just like DC heaven in a lot of ways from the stuff we mentioned. Some of the foundations they laid for future movies and stories, the establishing the history of the DC universe, the character dynamics were just perfect. The performances by all the actors in those hero roles were just spot on, just so good. The chemistry between all of them was great, and the acting sequences were a lot of fun. Great display of the powers, great character moments in them. So good. And we didn't even talk about this too much, so I'm going to bring it up here. But while I think overall the music for Justice League was kind of forgettable, but boy, when those classic themes kicked in for Batman and Superman, again, the smiles I had on my face was so good. Hearing the Batman 89 theme again, it was awesome. And I knew it was coming. I knew the clip was out there. I stayed away from the clip because I wanted to have that experience of sitting in the theater, seeing an awesome shot of Batman with the iconic definitive Batman theme playing again. I thought was great. And it was subtle too. It wasn't like in your face. Hey, you remember the Batman 89 theme? You remember the Superman theme? Here it is. It was just mixed in with the rest of the score perfect, where if you're a fan of those themes, you'll pick up on it right away, but it is something too where you can maybe miss if you're not really listening to it carefully. But so I was integrated, I thought, very nicely into the movie, but at the same time it was great to hear those iconic themes again for those characters. I don't know if you felt the same way about that, Rob, but I thought those moments were perfect.
Oh yeah. And I did spoil myself on this. I had to hear what his version of it. So I did see the rooftop scene of him coming down, but just hearing the swell and hearing the march of the Batmobile race, I thought, oh man, that's just great. I had been listening to the theme. I had downloaded the soundtrack before the movie came out because I always like to do that. Kind of want to get familiar with the music that I'm listening to before I come in to kind of just set the tone. I thought you did really well. I think I was expecting something grander, but I talked about the Wonder Woman theme of like, I was really wanting to hear the actual Hans Zimmer version of the Wonder Woman thing, the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel theme. And you got to hear those, but I started thinking about it in the way of like, those were the solo themes of those characters. And now these are those characters working together as a cohesive group. So maybe Danny Elfman thought, I want to do them as a unified theme so they don't sound – jarring is the wrong word. So all the music sounds uniformity together. So the Wonder Woman theme didn't have the brash violin. It was done with more flutes and other orchestral instruments that made it work because this is the Justice League version of those themes. So once I kind of had put it that way, having a week to listen to the soundtrack – listening to the movie, I was like, okay, it works, but I could also see sometimes that the parts of the soundtrack were kind of forgettable too, like the Man of Steel theme and even just the Beautiful Lie theme just had so much emotion in Batman versus Superman. I love that soundtrack to BVS. It's one of my all-time favorites next to the 89 theme. And this one was a good soundtrack, but I could see myself not remembering much of it. So
yeah, I was, like I said, it wasn't very memorable besides, the iconic themes that I remember hearing for years and years now. So I overall, I'm glad he stuck him in there. I know some people weren't happy with it or might not fit, and then, totally different universes for those themes, but it was just something fun to experience with the movie too. So I'm glad he put it in there. It was nice to hear it again. So yeah. So for my score, I really loved it. I'm going to go 4.5 smiles I had while watching Justice League out of 5. Like I said, not quite the perfect Justice League movie that I've been dying to see, but pretty darn close. And just this great feeling after the theater. Even it was just nice to see too, where the people in the audience in the theater I saw it, I think for the most part, I think everyone enjoyed it. A lot of people laughing and cheering when Superman came back. And I like too at the end of the movie when it was all over, the people in front of me, it was a family, like a mother or father with 2 daughters and a son. Right afterwards, like trying to decide who they were going to be. Like, I'm going to be Wonder Woman, but I'm going to be Supergirl. And the kids, I'm going to be Cyborg. Just that it took me back to when I was a kid seeing these movies, because that's the first thing you think of after you see a movie you really like and are excited about. You want to be those characters and play with like your brothers and sisters or your friends and be those characters again. So it was just nice to see that the Justice League movie is having that effect on this generation of kids too. So that's why these heroes and characters are timeless. They just inspire that it inspired your imagination for those who just like these type of stories, and it's just great to see that continuing. So that was just another cool feeling to get after the movie was over. It kind of setting up what it intended to, inspiring that message of hope to like a new generation there was really, really cool. So just a great experience overall seeing the movie, and I can't wait to see it again, which I'm probably going to do today. So especially you're right, talking about it now, it just makes me more excited and anxious to see it again. So yeah, looking forward to doing that. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, everyone, to listening to our Justice League review special. I mean, it was a long time coming, and we're glad to finally say that we have a Justice League movie and that it was really, really good, and hope that everyone enjoyed it as much as we did. So, Rob, thanks again for joining me on this episode. It was great geeking out with you on it, because I had a feeling both of us would have, similar reactions to it, knowing how excited we were for this movie and talking about it for years. So it was great to, get into all the nitty gritty of it and just have a total geek out session for 2 hours. So thanks so much for joining me.
It was a blast being on here. Thanks for having me back on. It's always fun to kind of come back home, as they say. And this was one podcast I was very much looking forward to being on. And it just, like I said, we've been waiting so long for this. So it was nice to know that I had somebody else I could just talk to and geek out with about it for a couple hours. So thanks for having me on. It really means a lot.
So before I give all our contact information out, do you want to go ahead and give yours out and for your podcast?
Yeah, you can find me over at Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. We're just finishing up Prodigal, where Dick Grayson was Batman for the first time. You can find us on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. We've got Facebook, Everyone Loves the Drake, and we're on Wednesdays over on TBU. And we usually do 2 a month, so that's where you can kind of find us. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter when I'm not talking about Robin and Batman, you can find me at DrummerRob10 on Twitter.
To be fair, when you're talking to me on Twitter with your normal account, we're still talking about Batman and Robin.
Yeah, we still are. So
yeah,
it's still Batman and Robin no matter what account I'm on. An occasional Pearl Drums reference of a new piece of hardware that comes out. Maybe you'll see that. But generally, it's still Batman and Robin.
Which is always awesome. So yeah,
that's right.
And as always, you can find us, of course, at our host site, thebatmanuniverse.net, and you can find us on social media at Twitter at BatFansPodcast. And if you want to send us any emails on your thoughts, questions regarding Justice League or anything Batman DC related, go ahead and send that over to batfanswithoutpants@gmail.com. So with that, that's going to wrap up our Justice League review episode. Thank you for everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.